Focusing Evenepoel's history-making double in Paris 2024, with finish line images at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, something we will see for years to come in compilations not only about cycling, but about Olympic sport. He won his second gold in 7 days in purest focusing style, just as he won his Liège, his World Championships, or his Classica San Sebastian. Long, unstoppable attacks gradually destroying everyone and anyone who wanted to get on his wheel, whether they were trotters like the Swiss Kung, multi-toolers like Benny Hilly, or climbers like the son of the salbutamol doper Valentin Madouas. How he actually did it, you already know from our Olympic time trial gold video, aided by his hyperactivity TUE that allows him to take Ritalin, amphetamines to the less informed. A hyperactivity that we saw with how nervous he became after suffering a flat tyre just 6 kilometres from the finish line, screaming like a madman at the mechanic who was doing his best to help the Belgian star shut the mouth of the dinosaur Eddie. A legend who must have been particularly aggrieved after seeing Focusing overtake his doped-up girl-loving son, who won bronze at the Athens Olympics, behind the UCI-protected Bettini and the one caught in Operation Puerto, Mauricio Moreira's teammate, Sergio Paulinho. We saw the hyperactivity again with his strange mood swings on the podium, going from the heights of joy to disconsolate crying, although these tears were perhaps because he was unable to enjoy a selfie with Selfie Le Partillon, although without the presence of his beloved Pauline, well, he seems to pay more attention to gymnastics or fencing competitions than his own sport, a sport that is increasingly rotten with him at the helm. Our friend Focusing's hyperactivity was once more apparent with his celebration in front of his Belgian fans, who cheered him, asking for pizzas while he danced on the stage in the purest bone and cocaine addict style, and this after 273 kilometres without any sign of fatigue. An image for history. And now perhaps we can remind you that if you want to subscribe to the channel for more cycling content, now's the chance. An opportunity to realise the absolutely unique moment that we are living through in this sport. Now, this is the first time in the Olympic history of professional cycling that a man has managed to win the time trial and road race, going back to 1996, when a historic hat-trick of clients by Dr. Luigi Cecchini laid the foundations for one of the dirtiest winning events of all time, a roll call of honour with names like the Strangler Ulrich, the protected Italian cricket, the former doped Asturian prepared by Pepe Marti, a military doper who bought the gold from a Colombian, or a Belgian who, thanks to the advice of his masseur, the same masseur of US Postal, was able to beat the friend of our friend of the channel, Biana Rees, treated by Dr. Ferrari with a TUE in hand. There has been, of course, one other person able to conquer both events. Actually 3 in this case, because she also achieved one in track cycling, the woman you see in the pictures, the Dutch rider Leontien Geelaert van Moorsel. She achieved this milestone in Sydney in the year 2000, totally doped with EPO up to her ever so immaculately sculpted doped eyebrows, as her doctor Peter Janssen confessed from Thailand before dying. The same doctor who'd been in teams full of dopers, such as PDM, Panasonic, Skilled Shimano, or the legendary Vacances Soleil. And now the son of that doped woman is a professional cyclist in Luigi's team. He's even won the prologue of the Tour of Romandy this year. That's professional cycling for you. It'll never change. Now, having highlighted Focusing Evenepoel's achievement was something unprecedented in the history of cycling, and even more so for someone only 24 years old, let's focus on the big loser of the day, the friend of Dr. Cecchini and the son and grandson of dopers, Mathieu van der Poel. In the eyes of the vast majority, he was the standout favourite to win the Olympic gold. But if we go by the confessions of the Gregario of Gregarios, Matteo Jorgensen, this made no sense at all. According to the American rider of the Rabobank team, for him, the big favourites were his teammates, Wout van Aert and Focusing, because he knew that the Belgian preparation had been very, very good, and he knew that the world champions had been very bad. Now, according to Jorgensen, he wouldn't understand how the Dutchman could even get near a gold medal after having seen him crawl like never before in the Tour de France. At the pre-race press conference, Van der Poel simply lied, claiming that Jorgensen had no idea about his preparation and that he had simply copied what he'd done to become world champion in Glasgow a year earlier. False, because first it was the rider from the hair-doping team himself who complained about having to ride the whole Tour de France because of pressure from the sponsor who pays him so handsomely, of course. And so he didn't want to even be in France for 3 weeks. And then secondly, because while in Glasgow he prepared thoroughly, he reconnoitred the course on several occasions, whereas in Paris, well, all his elitist complexes and spoilt child syndrome came out. The abuser of teenagers was back, tantrums galore, ensuring that he would not train in areas so full of tourists, as did the rest of the stars of the peloton. Instead, he would go to the countryside to pedal and show off his Lambo, which he took out of his home garage in Belgium to Paris, simply to show it off. It backfired on Poulidor's vain grandson, who, despite unleashing one of his spectacular attacks on the climb of the Sacré-Cœur, the marking by the Belgian bot and then focusing himself made him realise that this time the preparation had not been, well, as good as in 2023. Of course, in a race without earpieces, without Mathieu being able to hear his adored Justin Bieber through the headphones, well, perhaps that was a weakness. Perhaps that is one of the intellectual failures of those who simply pull brute force out of the bag, brute force which has its roots in exogenous treatments. A second Olympic Games in which the adored golfer fails miserably. And don't miss this, he's already thinking of taking the gold from Tiny Tim Pidcock in Los Angeles in 4 years' time. It's absolutely terrifying, isn't it? Now, almost as terrifying has been the number of gifts enjoyed by France at these Olympics, as if they didn't have enough with all the monsters they've generated in this cycle under the care of the friend of many men, Emmanuel Macron. I'm not talking about the silver medal of the son of the doper, Valentin Madouas. That was much deserved after getting into the right breakaway and then trying for 30 kilometres to hold the murderous pace of focusing through the streets of Paris. But rather the bronze medal of the man missing for 6 months this year, Cristophe Laporte. The European champion came in third at the finish line without even sprinting. He didn't know he was in that position, but some of his rivals could have known. The problem is that several of them, such as the Gregario of Gregarios, the Hungarian Attila Valter, or the Slovenian Jan Tratnik, are all his teammates at Rabobank. Now, possibly in normal conditions he would have won the bronze after the fall of his teammate Bot. But the overriding impression of yet another Olympic gift shows that this competition, as we saw in 2012, has much more of a Whitehall farce than we could ever imagine. The liar Van der Poel, who'd stopped at some farmer's house in principle to relieve himself in Glasgow, finished almost 2 minutes behind focusing, crossing the line outside the top 10, along with the little British multi-tool. A disappointment. The next time he copies the German Niels Pollitt and stops to relieve himself in an area full of tourists, well, it will be good for him not to think that he's superior to others simply because he has more money and more fame and recognition. Because, after all, focusing's triumph in Paris will always be linked to the deserved defeat of the son and grandson of dopers. Now, while you're here, check out that video on the screen. You will love it.